Okay, so after that brief interlude, hello and welcome to episode 12 of Laughing into the Void. I'm your host, Ros, and co-hosting with me tonight is former guest of the show, current co-host of the show for now, moving up in the world, podcaster and comedian and musician, Mike Moran. See him this February 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the For the Love of Comedy fundraiser for Kennedy Krieger.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
You got that info quickly. I just put that up.
Yeah. Tom is a librarian and does a lot of work for me to make me look good.
You take no credit for anything, Roz. You gotta.
Well, you know, one of us is the charisma and one of us is...
Yeah, you truly are.
So if you want to get tickets for that, you can go to bonfirealive.com. Also, please feel free to watch our previous broadcasts on the District Comedy YouTube and Facebook channels, or listen to them on most podcast platforms. And if you enjoy the stream and you want to make a donation, you could go to district-comedy.live. Alternatively, like, share, subscribe to our stuff, because that also helps us. And here today we have Kacey Hackett. Kacey is a DC-based comedian. You can find out more about her at kaceyhackett.com. And we're going to spell that for you because we've already screwed that up once. KaceyHackett.com, or on Instagram at Kacey Hackett. Thank you so much for being with us today, and let's jump right on in.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for spelling my name. I was actually thinking about that. Like, that URL just like is going to confuse everyone because my name is tough to spell.
As a Rosalind, I kind of sympathize with you. Like, I don't really like going by Roz. Like, it's not my preference, but it's easier to remember. So people just end up calling me that.
People can't remember Rosalind?
No. I swear to God, they can't.
Let's hang out with a lot of ADD people. Is the problem that are there also Rosalinds in this world? Is that a thing?
Rosalinds.
Okay.
There's Rosalinds. I've only met 2 other Rosalinds, which is weird because it's a Shakespearean name that my mom picked out probably when she was like still high on painkillers after giving birth to me.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, it's a very nice name.
Thanks. I'll tell her you said that. Fun story. I met Kathleen Turner at a horror convention and she liked my name too. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who's that?
You don't know?
Kathleen Turner?
She voiced Jessica Rabbit. She was in Romancing the Stone. It's got a husky.
I saw both of those maybe 30 years ago.
Well, if you were going to Distantly Social Trivia and there was a Kathleen Turner question, your team's screwed.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
It just means you need Rosalind on your team. It's all about having a well-rounded team.
I would love to have Rosalind on my team anytime.
Yeah, I have lots of useless information upstairs. But anyway, Kacey, enough about me. So I'm going to start off with a question that we like to ask everybody here. It's very open-ended. How would you describe your sense of humor to someone who's never seen you perform?
I don't know if other people are like, man, I should know this answer like off the top of my head, but I find this to be a very hard question to answer. But I do think it's kind of, I've been told dark wit, and I try to ease it, like ombre that darkness, because you can't open with the story about your grandmother's funeral. I've learned it really just doesn't set a great tone for the rest of the set. So an ombre wit, I would say.
You got to ease them in there and then bring them back.
Got to ease them in.
Okay. Well, and also I'd say, like, I watched some of your stand-up in preparation for this, which is more work than I usually do. And I'd say like maybe like a twinge of observational comedy in there a little bit too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of observational, and I do have a rule that if, you know, my CEO or HR manager ever were to see a set, I would still have my job the next day.
All
It
right.
may be a little awkward, but I'd still have a job. So kind of setting some parameters around what I say related to that too.
That's always good. Yeah, I don't know. Mike, have you ever had that happen where like somebody you didn't want like came to one of your comedy gigs or something?
Well, first of all, I've never had a job important enough that they would care.
That's true.
Someone that I didn't want to come to one of my comedy gigs. Early on, like my mom would come to open mics sometimes, and I'm happy to have her at certain. I have to kind of like screen the shows before if I'm gonna have my mom there. I remember she just showed up at an open mic I was doing once, and I was like, "No, this isn't. I don't feel safe for you." You know, like
It really is about the other humor too. It's like, well, I don't love that you're hearing this joke, but I really just don't want to sit next to you as other people are like describing these sex stories.
Yeah, that's
that
all.
Is more
I don't care about my
uncomfortable.
humor. Yeah, like my stuff doesn't get all that, intimate. But yeah, I don't want some jerk off, saying something vulgar to my mom.
Yeah. I definitely learned at my shows, like I'm mostly an improv comic, like that's most what my live shows have been, but my parents loved going to them for a long time, and so I'm really bad at filtering myself for the sake of who I know is in the audience.
Right.
So I like made a very graphic glory hole joke in front of my dad once.
How is a glory hole joke not graphic?
When you're talking about that wonderful glass blowing show on Netflix.
Right, yeah. Or
there's a glass blowing show on Netflix.
If you're like, Lord, make my glory whole.
Yeah, it was a church joke. That's what it was, Dad. I'm sorry.
And then so he's going around saying it all the time.
Yeah. So anyway, Kacey, how long have you been doing comedy for? Like
on Netflix?
Yeah.
Or about 3 years. I got pretty serious about it about 1.5 years ago. Okay. But 3 years total.
Awesome.
Okay. And
you ever come up to Baltimore?
I hadn't, and now I have like more friends in Baltimore and stuff. So like when things open up, I'd love to.
Cool.
Yeah, we have a guest room at my house and a closet full of pillows that are protected from Cat V.
So you've got all the fort materials you're gonna want.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about your background before you started Distantly Social Trivia. Like, you kind of had an adventure while you were trying to write a novel, and then it seems like that kind of led you into the world of comedy.
Yeah, I love how this is set up. It's like, oh, you were trying. It's like I was trying to write a novel in a sense that I thought I had all these great ideas. I sat down and I was like, well, that was a page. Gee, I thought I had more to say there. So yeah, but I actually cut off my internet. I really wanted to show Comcast
you got rid of the internet.
I got rid of my internet for a year and a half. I have it back now. This is
that
obviously
even legal?
Pre-pandemic.
I can't go if my phone dies for like an hour. I'm like lost,
It really, so I was like, all right, so I got a gym membership and I got rid of my internet, and I was like, okay, the gym has Wi-Fi, so this will be an incentive to go to the gym. And this showed me all of the things I will do besides going to the gym, and starting stand-up is one of them. So I just started writing jokes and started like finding open mics to perform them, and really would avoid anything or will do anything to avoid going to the gym, is what I learned through that experience.
That's fair. You can always try and be one of those comedians that just commits to a single character who works out, and then you'll like work out while you do comedy, and then just slowly stop doing comedy. You don't want to work out anymore. That's what I would do.
You're saying you should come on stage like wearing a Jane Fonda headband and leotard, and like her character's like aerobics Annie or something.
Yeah, it's great. It would kill every time.
I do have a bit where I like really pantomime what it's like to use the bathroom in a romper. And when I do that, and I actually like had to like do squats to do it on stage for a bigger show, because I was like, I'm doing this in heels and I'm balancing on one foot. And I was like, I gotta get into shape just to do this one joke.
Or at
I
least
fell
like,
over a little bit.
Work on your center of gravity so you don't
Yeah.
fall over. Okay. Well, so one of the things you're most known for, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is distantly social trivia. So you founded that at the beginning of the pandemic, it sounds like.
Yeah, almost a year ago. I had the idea actually before when like everyone was like, oh, you shouldn't hang out in big groups, but nothing officially closed yet. So I ended up starting it, I think like the 16th, like actually the day everything got ordered to close. I kind of already had things up and running, which is crazy timing. But I kind of, just only child syndrome kind of kicked in. If I can't go to bars like 4 or 5 times a week for comedy, like what am I gonna do? I need something to do. I spent so much time like going from like mic to mic and show to show, and I can't just sit on my couch. So I just needed to entertain myself, and ended up entertaining other people.
What does that have to do with being an only child? Oh, because you have to entertain yourself?
Yeah, you make up games for yourself. You find a way to play Monopoly alone.
Wow, that's sad.
But I guess you always win, so there is that.
Does anyone ever win? What happens when you win in Monopoly?
Don't you just kind of give up on Monopoly? Like,
I don't think anyone's ever finished a game of Monopoly. I think if you do win it, you can actually, if you can prove that you completed a game of Monopoly, you can send in your Monopoly brothers to Milton Bradley and send you actual money in exchange for it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I had friends. We didn't think the game was long enough, and we used to push 2 games to get 2 boards together and do a figure 8.
Oh, man, you were bored as a child, huh?
Nice. Well, okay, so I want to know this. I play bar trivia every now and then. Okay, I'm in what people call the life. But
only up there on that pedestal, Rosalind.
Yeah, right. The air's thin, but I survived the altitude sickness. But so I'm wondering, what in your mind makes like the best trivia team? Like, if you're on a team of people who are competing for Distantly Social, like, what do you think are the key type of people that are your players?
I think there's a few things. People ask me a lot if I have like a limit on the number of people in a team. And I don't, because I think once you get past 6 people, you start talking, there's too many voices. People start talking people out of right answers. Like at some point you need like a smaller group, a well-rounded group. But the more, like, if you have 10 people, either not everyone's talking or they're talking over each other and no one can decide on an answer because there's just too many voices in there. I think you need that sports person, and you need that science person. On my old trivia team, my friend's boyfriend was like, we're all event planners, and then he works in a hospital. So like there was always like a few questions where, what do you mean Kevin's not coming? Like we need him.
Who won the Super Bowl in 1957?
Yeah.
What is your specialty, Rosalind, when you do trivia?
I know a lot of like school crap, like just basic like the plots to the novels that everyone's like forced to read in school, or like I know a lot of like obscure like social studies type stuff because my background, like my degrees are in politics, so I know that kind of crap. Sports, nothing, absolutely nothing. Like, you got to have the sports guy. Like the sports guy, you can't win without the sports guy. The sports guy is the crux of any good trivia team, because he's, and like if it's like you don't have the sports guy and your friend has watched baseball 3 times, you're going to expect that friend to know who threw 4 back in the NCAA championship.
Right, yeah.
That is me. I like watching baseball, but I don't know like history and stats and all that. And everyone's like, "Oh, well, you were at the game last week." I was like, "Not every game in history, just the one last week."
You're like, "Yeah, I've watched a baseball game, but what the fuck do I know about golf?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So you always got to have that default sports guy when regular sports guy doesn't show up, I think.
Yeah. Music is huge too. I find that music has been people's like sweet or weak spot. Like if you do a lyrics question.
I'd be good at that as long as everything was before 1998.
I've got bad news for you, Mike. Music still exists.
Sure. If that's true, how come I haven't seen a CD store in forever? They're not making new ones.
Yeah, all the kids are listening to vinyl now.
Look, music was a fad. Okay, it's over. It's like MySpace or something. It's like Pogs.
Yeah. My mom always said it was a phase.
Yeah. Smells, I think, will be the next one to go.
Smells are going? Okay. Well, that's bad news for the shower industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just called a COVID symptom.
That is true.
That is the next thing to go.
Oh God.
I love it when I don't even know what joke I'm making. Somebody else has to figure it out for me. Like my joke was good, but I just didn't know it because I didn't think of the.
Mark my words, one of us is going to end up using that in a bit.
I've already tweeted it.
Okay, well, so for when you're putting together, you said you put together the questions yourself, right? Are you like a one-woman team?
Yes, not fully. I am the one writing the questions. And I have a very particular way of writing the games. Like I do different categories, but I'm never going to do a category that's called like history or sports. My goal is to have like, I want no one to feel stupid when playing the game. So everyone like has that one question that they are like confident about and that they know, that isn't like what color is the sky, like it's still like a challenging question.
Blue.
So I within the time frame and everything, you got it. So I try to have cute categories that I can then jam as much different topics in as possible. So I try to make them topical, try to make them funny. So like one of the categories is, the places you can't go, appropriate uses for bleach, just various categories that you would be surprised. Like Bleach, you've got a Nirvana album, it's an anime show, asked a question about the 80s and acid wash jeans. There's, once you start to think about it, there's a lot of different places that you can go with
a lot of true crime cleanup.
Yep.
Bleach, very essential for that thing. That sounds really fun. I like how you've made like creative and imaginative categories.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to hear that you've like kind of started like a DIY trivia, because I feel like at least in like the Baltimore, Annapolis area, there's like a few big trivia companies that own most of the bars that have trivia nights.
Really?
So you don't see it. Yeah.
Big trivia is controlling things around here.
Big Triv. You gotta look out for them. They'll quiz you until you cry.
They don't care about people. They're just
you're not allowed to leave the bar until you answer 3 questions correctly.
The questions come from question farms.
Yeah. You're funny, Kacey. You keep coming up with jokes that I'm like, God damn it, why didn't I say that?
Okay, well, yeah, but it's cool that like you're getting a different perspective out there, because I feel like trivia is kind of an older concept. So the fact that someone who's like kind of new and fresh to the game is like trying to do something different and trying to make it more accessible. I think that's really cool. So that wasn't an interview question. That was me sucking up to you. But, so
you're not getting on our team, Rosalind.
Okay, good. So like one of the things that Tom and I were talking about when we were putting your interview together, the pandemic is a really scary time to start a business. So did you have any concerns going into that when you were starting distantly social trivia, or what kind of inspired you to pursue that?
Yeah, no, because I had no idea I was starting a business. When it's all accidental, it's certainly not as scary. So, it just started out with like me and some friends doing it, and then friends told other friends who told other friends, and it really just snowballed. And then one of those friends wrote something for the Washington Post, and that's when it like got really crazy and kind of national.
That's great.
So yeah, it was wild. Like we had up to like 80 people playing during the summer. It was cool. And we still have like a lot of regular teams kind of came out of that press. So it was just this thing, and we raised money. So like I also wasn't, I wasn't looking to like pay myself or like really make it a business. It's just like this fun thing to do. Plus it's a fundraiser. And where the business side really came out of it was when people started contacting me to do it for their companies and team building and birthday parties and all these private events. And I was like, okay, wow. All right. Well, we've got to create packages and business models for that too. And so it just kind of came out of nowhere. So just kind of rolling with the punches, and yeah, it makes it less scary when you don't really realize you're doing it at the time.
But it's all just a happy accident.
Yeah.
Nice. And you've been able to raise like $12,000 towards assisting people affected by COVID. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about like those efforts?
Yeah. So I have a huge guilt complex just in general. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. But when I started this, like I said, things were like still open. So I was like, oh no, I'm taking away. And when I'm saying I'm taking away, I meant like my 10 friends who were going to play this first trivia game. I'm like, we're going to take away business from the bars. That's not right. We just don't feel safe about going there. So I wanted to like balance that out by like finding organizations. And then again, everything kind of shut down pretty much immediately. It was kind of hard in the first few weeks to find an organization because they hadn't kind of started up yet. But then Hook Hall Helps in DC started up very quickly, and now there's a lot of others. So it was actually also kind of challenging because it started not being able to find any organizations, and then there were so many, and it's like choosing where to donate because they're all so great. So at the beginning, I donated to a lot of different ones, and now we've kind of honed in on like who's still going, who wasn't just a band-aid for like the summer months, and who has like a continued mission, and that's kind of the core organizations that we're donating to now.
Yeah, that's awesome. As the partner of someone who owns bar, I talk about it every single stream because it always comes up. But thank you for trying to support the industry. I can tell you it's very appreciated right now because it's a hard time for a lot of people. So, but Mike, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. Well, was I saying something?
Yeah,
I think I was just going to point out how you're this is apparently a happy accident. You've accomplished all that in the year just by accident, and I'm out here.
I think if I set to do anything on purpose, it would have failed miserably. I think the only way to do things sometimes is just completely by accident.
Yeah, remind me to stop trying, I think.
Yeah, that kind of describes my entire life. Anytime I've really been invested in something, it's just nothing. And then it's like, oh, I don't really care. Oh, cool. I'm graduating from college.
Yeah, I kind of just fail both ways, honestly. You're not trying.
Yeah, well, okay. So what kind of tips do you have for like organizing a trivia night? So are you an event planner by day? It kind of sounded like that's sort of your arena.
Yeah. I think that has been really helpful in just kind of the logistical success of trivia, because I have like a stopwatch going the entire time, making sure that we, no question is up too long or too little, and just a lot of type A details that I think would drive most people crazy. But yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why I kind of dove into this, because I knew my job would ask me to start doing virtual events after kind of the dust settled of we're working from home. So I was like, all right, if I can build some experience in doing virtual events before they even ask me to, I can, I'm going to look good. So it's kind of just winning professionally on that end. So yeah, I've been an event planner for 10 years. So very, very used to like timing and runs of show and over communicating to people and kind of walking them through, especially a lot of the private games. There's a lot of technology hand holding that I feel like we've all been through at some point if we've been on a family Zoom or something like that. So
yeah. That makes me appreciate Tom so much because of all the hard, like if Tom didn't exist, the show wouldn't, because he's the person that contacts people, that writes questions, that makes the tech side run. Like he couldn't even be here tonight, and his little square is still kind of in the corner there.
So sad. Yeah, I'm bad with this. I can't even poke people on Zoom properly. I can do that. I'm trying to pimp my page over here.
Yeah, Mike's basically just here for eye candy, so
Yeah.
Well, I will say Tom is so organized though. Like as an event planner, I can appreciate like all the different like emails and how he lays everything out, and I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, he does a good job. He really makes it look professional.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because like I've known Tom since he was like 17 years old, and I don't think I would have ever expected him to be so organized and professional when he grew up. Like, I don't know, I feel like a proud mom sometimes. But I
Can we call that that's the quote card out of this episode? It's like, who would have thought Tom would have been organized?
No, we have to
get doing at 17, going around stealing pies off windowsills, knocking over liquor stores, playing mailbox baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheating in frog hopping contests.
What dropping contests?
Frog hopping
contest.
Frog races.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess that's what kids who had siblings did. I'm over there playing Monopoly by myself, but you were racing frogs, so I didn't know what I was missing.
Mostly just a lot of fighting and crying. and inside jokes. I have one sibling, and he's the reason I have an Encino Man tattoo. So take that as a positive or negative.
To cover up a scar?
No. It's we have matching Encino Man tattoos. We got them for his birthday this year. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. It's an icy, and it says "Wheezing the Juice."
Wheezing the juice.
Yeah, and it's in the most painful part of my arm that I've ever
experienced. You got to suffer for good art sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, one day maybe Pauly Shore will get to see it, but
I think you could probably just call him right now and tell him about it, and he'd answer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's probably got some kind of 90s money stocked up. I don't know.
I don't think he's doing a whole lot though.
Yeah, that's true. He's not busy. Well, none of us are. That's why we're all here, right?
That's why I've been able to get famous people on my podcast.
What?
That's why I've been able to get famous people on my podcast. They have nothing to do otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. That and you're just good at being like, okay, I'll just ask them,
Yeah.
But okay, so Kacey, like, what's your favorite category of trivia? Like, what the questions that you write? Like, what's your favorite topic to kind of look up?
Oh, writing. Because I think the stuff I'm actually quite bad at, I find the most fun to write. And then I'm very proud of myself because I think the questions are hard, and we have just players who are so smart. But we have We have a section. So the second place team from the previous week always chooses the second round category for the upcoming week. And tomorrow we have a before and after category. We have a lot of Jeopardy fans. So they wanted something like very Jeopardy with before and after. And those were very fun to write. I actually wrote too many. And I was like, oh no, I can't use all these. And then I started writing like kind of dirty ones that I can maybe use in a stand-up set later.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of familiar with the before and after concept. What can you explain that?
Yeah, let me get one I'm not using tomorrow. Okay, so what I'm not using tomorrow is like a Beach Boys song and a world champion UFC fighter would be help me Ronda Rousey. Oh, sorry, I should have let you guess.
Oh, help me Ronda Rousey. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I see. So it's combining two.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I have like I would say like I like music trivia a lot, but like I like really dark facts that I don't think would do well in a light bar environment. So I would just bring the mood down as a trivia host.
Like what? These members of Slipknot have overdosed.
I don't know that Slipknot
what is big guy?
No, my favorite music trivia fact of all time is that one of the members of ABBA was in the Lebensborn program, like with the Nazis. Which was like a program that rehoused German-looking babies. So she was like raised by Nazis.
Wow.
But once again, very dark and not something people want to think about when they're trying to have fun. So,
related to the Beach Boys, did you know one of the Beach Boys was like very chummy with Charles Manson? And
it wasn't Brian Wilson. It was the other Wilson, right?
Dennis
Wilson. Dennis Wilson. Yeah, I learned that recently, and it's another really good trivia fact.
Yeah, Charles Manson was actually an okay songwriter, I have to admit.
Yeah, he was just crazy and he murdered people.
That's what did it for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, fine with the music, but I'm not gonna be able to separate the art from the artist if you're going around literally murdering people.
Let's not get into an art or the artist conversation this week. I'm still reeling.
Did you push your Marilyn Manson t-shirt out of sight?
That's in the closet. Yeah.
I will say that has been tough when writing trivia questions because there are things that you want to write trivia about and like are very topical things, but then you're like, this is like not a topic we talk about anymore, you know? So like, is it okay to write something in this realm, or do I just drop it? And then that is something that I've been kind of struggling with writing questions.
Yeah, I can definitely see. I mean, like, because you want people to have fun, but also there's like, we've learned a lot of really horrible things about people over the years that like you don't really want to bring up, but also they're good. There's good trivia associated. Yeah, I sympathize.
Yeah, not specifically about like the trauma. That's not what you're writing the trivia fact about. But like, you know, there's
a lot
of.
Who was Ghost Dad? Something like that.
Yeah, who's Ghost Dad? Or alternatively, one of Mike's favorite urban legends is the one about Marilyn Manson getting one of his ribs removed so he could auto-fellate. Which is a really good urban legend, but
that's one of my favorites.
You talk about it all the time.
What?
You do?
In what context? I have like one joke about it. Talk about it all the time. I'm always finding a way to bring it into the conversation. You guys are all talking politics, and I'm like, you know what that reminds me of?
Oh, bending over to pick up that box. You know who can bend over? That's forever ruined for you now, Mike. You're done. But Well, I don't know. So have you ever had like one of those guys that likes to argue with you about like the correct answer for something? Because my friend Pat does trivia around Baltimore, and he has this look of just like impatience that crosses his face whenever I see somebody amble up to his table to like holding their little scorecard, being like they got him. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I would like to say that I don't like to say it, but it is a fact that I have been heckled more in trivia than I ever have in comedy. And I think virtually, I say this actually in the registration form because this has happened. Like, facts, one, have changed over time. Sometimes people are breaking new records or things are very close. So like, the dissection of writing questions, like if you don't phrase it just so, it could have been another answer, like, and mistakes are going to be made. So I try very hard to not make them, but it's going to happen. So it's really all about how, like, are you going to be in the asshole who's like typing in all caps, like about how everything's wrong? Or it's like, can you just be an adult and be like, hey, what about this? I thought, and depending on whether you're acting like a 2-year-old in a grocery store or not, depends how I treat you in the game.
Fair enough. You have the power.
Yeah, I've kicked a team out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good for you. I'm glad that you do that. More people need to be kicked off the internet for being assholes.
Yeah, so, it was a repeated occurrence, and I was like, look, we've had conversations about how to interact with other humans. It's not setting in, so sorry.
Yeah. Especially with like, oops, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, I think that's what the Beach Boys said to Manson.
Let's treat others the way we would want to be treated.
Sorry, buddy, you're out.
And then everything went all helter skelter. Well, so like as a comedian, do you feel like some of those skills have passed over and helped you become a better trivia host?
Yes, I think so. And I think vice versa. Something I was never really that strong with was like crowd work and just like being able to come up with stuff on the fly. And it's certainly not the same in Zoom as if you were in a room. But I think doing trivia like at least once every week and kind of dealing with people's questions and trying to make it fun. Like I had one person argue with me. I had a picture of the dog from Little Rascals, and he had the eye, the circle.
Yeah.
And apparently that was the same dog in Homeward Bound 2. That did not have the painted circle around the eye. And they were like arguing.
That the Little Rascals on in like the 30s?
No, they made it in the 90s.
No, they made it in like the 90s.
Oh, the remake. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, I saw that in the theater, actually. It was very cool.
I had that thought too. I was like, is that the world's oldest dog?
And they, like, this person was like, well, Homeward Bound 2 should be a viable answer. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you're arguing about one. I can't believe you know this dog's acting history and the fact that you know that this dog has been in multiple things. But no, this is clearly the Little Rascals scene that he's in. Like, that's what we're going with. So like, you have to make that funny, because that is just a ridiculous argument to have. And like
costume for that movie.
Yeah, I know you're not going to argue that about like, well, Julia Roberts was also in Ocean's 11, so I know this is Erin Brockovich, but you should accept it. Like, no one's going to make that argument.
Yeah. I just want to know who remembers the acting histories of dogs. Like, I'm always fascinated when people remember like which director has done which movies. Mm-hmm. But going into a dog's acting career is a little like an extra layer of intense.
I'll tell you what's fun is you go up to someone and you tell them like, you remind me of that person from that movie. And then as they inquire, you'd be like, no, the second key grip from Die Hard 3. That guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Like Homeward Bound 2, I don't remember that being exactly a blockbuster. Like they are like also really reaching.
Oh, it wasn't even the original Homeward Bound. It was the sequel.
No, it was like Homeward Bound 2, Doggy Boogaloo, or whatever it was.
Why would you know that? Like, I have a lot of useless knowledge rattling around up there, but I'm pretty sure Homeward Bound 2 is direct to video.
No, it was not. I remember it going.
Oh. All right, I stand corrected. Huh. Okay.
Well, they didn't have the same dogs. Spoiler alert.
Apparently there was a limited amount of trained dogs in Hollywood at the time, and
Yeah.
and they needed to outsource to
Right.
a previously known dog.
Right.
Yeah. Well, cool. Okay. So back in the old days, before we started, being stuck inside under quarantine, were you performing at open mics a lot, or were you doing like different featured spots? Like, what was kind of your comedy trajectory?
I was definitely doing a lot of open mics, and I was just starting. March last year was like really going to be my month. I had so many things booked, or at least comparative to what I had booked previously. So that was disappointing. So I was just starting to get booked for featured spots and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. When you write a joke, like what's your process? Do you have an organic process, or do you have to sit down and force it, or like kind of how do you come up with what you're going to talk about when you're on stage?
Yeah, I've actually been playing around with different writing styles right now, just to see if I can do different things. I'm, like you said, I'm very observational. I wouldn't say I am full-blown storyteller, but each of my jokes, I would say, are about a minute instead of quick one-liners. So I do have to try to force it if I'm trying to write like a one-liner or something short. But yeah, I keep a notebook with me all the time, and just when I see something, I'm gonna write it down, because otherwise I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like lying in bed emailing myself, being like, funny thing, and then like trying to decipher that in the morning.
Yeah. Do you ever have like sometimes I'll wake up and I'll like have written a joke in a dream or something, and I'll write it down, and it's always just ridiculous. Like one time I woke up in the morning and I had written down papers blown around by the fan in my room equal ghost walking around or something.
I had a dream that Alex Winter from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures sent me a message on Instagram.
Wow, I communicated with him once on Twitter.
Oh, look at you.
I solved an age-old mystery. You might be interested in hearing this.
I would love to.
This, well, you probably saw this on Unexplained Mysteries, and you might have learned about it in school, where the movie Biodome was said to be originally written as Bill and Ted 3. It's probably the same kid.
Yes, I believe that was in literature 101 in college. Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember that very distinctly from school.
I mean, I'm not judging anyone. I've got a tattoo.
And he would say online, like he was like, it's an urban legend as far as I know. I don't know where it came from. Well, I know where it came from, because I remember him in 1992 when the second Bill and Ted came out. He was joking about how the third one could be about Bill and Ted locked inside of some sort of biodome structure, and he had forgotten that. And I told him, and he was pleased to hear it.
Oh wow!
Yep.
That's great. Like you won the argument of no, you really did say this. It's not like, oh, I knew this guy, he just totally made it up and solved the mystery. Like you.
Yeah. Because when the movie Biodome came out, I remember thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be Bill and Ted 3.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a Biodome tattoo, Rosalind?
I do not have a Biodome tattoo next, but Mike, if you're willing to go together, we can get matching ones. Nah. Although one of the more regrettable Baldwins was involved. So is it Stephen Baldwin?
I don't know. It was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was like, I don't really, I don't know, Mike, what's your writing process like? Because I think mine is very different because I come from such an improv background, and I don't think mine is necessarily very developed yet because I haven't done as much stand up.
Yeah, I don't really have one, honestly. I kind of just I collect stuff as I think of it, just like Kacey was saying. And I force myself to work on writing every day, but I don't have I'm still searching for it, really. And I want to get to a place where I know, like when I write music, I kind of have a not so much a process, but I kind of know what part of my brain to go into to find the next piece, And I don't quite have that with comedy yet, and I want that to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Do you handwrite versus type?
No, I just use my phone usually. I kind of I like to kind of pace around my room and think, and it's not so much about the writing. And I'm probably a slightly different comedian than you are, Kacey. Like I'm more of a joke, like one-liner kind of set up punchline type of guy. And I just want to I don't know. I just think and I think, and that's it.
I do have to handwrite things because that's how I like commit things to memory, especially like transitions and that sort of thing from one joke to another. If I write it down, it's in my memory, but if I type it, I like it's hard to recall.
Yeah, well, I do when I'm trying to memorize a set, I write it out, and that is really helpful.
Yeah, I used to do that. I had such a hard time going back to school for grad school because they do everything on laptops in classrooms now. And for me, I don't remember stuff unless I write it manually. So I'd be the only person sitting there in like a class full of laptops with like a notebook, just like copying every word. And the professor would be like, "Oh, you don't have to do that. I'm going to put the PowerPoint up later." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I have to force myself to pay attention to you."
That uninteresting, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's for me, I definitely remember better when I handwrite. But I also, most of my jokes are like stories, kind of. They're like all jokes that are woven together with one story is kind of how I write. And that's mostly because I have a hard time memorizing sets. So like when I'm writing, I try to do it in like a chronological format so I can remember which joke leads to the next joke. And sometimes it works and sometimes it does not.
Yeah, so. I'm exactly the same way. And I would say every time I write it, I'm better at like cutting down the word, like getting better word economy each time. So I do kind of write the whole thing out a few times to make them a little more concise each time.
Yeah. So like when all of this is over, when the heavens open and we're all magically vaccinated, like what do you see yourself doing with Distantly Social and with comedy in general?
That is a great question, especially with Distantly Social. It was only in like the past week or so where I was like, oh, this is like kind of like becoming a thing. Maybe this could go beyond the pandemic. I really wasn't believing that it could for a very long time. But we just had a really big private event, and with companies switching to allowing more remote work, allowing people to be really working from anywhere, they still want some sort of like happy hour social thing that's not super awkward. And our trivia format, and we've got a game show format too, has been working really, really well for that. So I think that might continue. I don't know if the weekly games will. We do have a lot of regular players who are like playing with, their college roommates who are across the country. You really can build your own trivia super team, and just, pick your smartest friends from wherever, which I think is what some teams are definitely doing. So, maybe I personally have been seeing people weekly that I haven't seen in, 10 years. And now I talk to them every week. So that's been kind of cool. So.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one thing that we talk a lot about on the show is like kind of with Zoom mics is kind of access issues about how, you know, I feel like I talk also about Desiree every week, but we had Desiree Walsh on, and she uses a wheelchair to get around. And she said like one of the problems she's had is just physically accessing some venues because they are oftentimes in a basement and there's no ramp, there's no way to get down there. So it kind of creates this barrier. And then other comedians I've talked to are like, I live in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota. Like I can't just drive for an hour to go to an open mic because the closest bar is like 4 hours away. I don't know. So it's kind of interesting how that's like brought nightlife a little bit closer to a lot of people. So I imagine maybe there's going to be some kind of like market for it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say from an event perspective, you know, even what I'm looking at from work, you know, speaker lineups have never been able to be more diverse than they are now because, you know, people who have previously dealt with childcare and couldn't come to the conference that you were programming, or, you know, their work wouldn't let them, or, you know, just like scheduling conflicts. You're able to have just a more diverse voice of people at any event, whether it's comedy, it's a conference, you know, whatever it is. So I think moving forward, kind of everything has to at least have a hybrid component, even if it is in person. So people who can't participate in person have an option to still be an active and engaged attendee. So it'll be interesting kind of how things shift that way, but I think it's a real missed opportunity if things just completely revert back to the way they were.
Yeah. And I think you kind of mentioned like corporate gigs and like we did a lot of corporate gigs in Free Range Improv, which was the troupe I was with. I was in with Tom for 7-8 years, and they're not the most artistically, you know, they're not the most artistic gigs you're going to get. It's a lot of pandering, a lot of incorporating weird slogans into your games that you wouldn't otherwise. But they tend to be pretty fun if you can get the audience on board. And one time we got access to a mashed potato bar at a company's holiday party, which I have to say are the most beautiful 3 words in the English language.
Mashed potato bar.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
I'm going to become a mashed potato barfly.
Yeah, you're just gonna hang out and be like, so you order the russets often?
Mashed potato bar. That had to be a very hip company, right? There's no way that was like Procter and Gamble or something.
Well, so it was really awkward because it was a tech company and they had a really lavish holiday party and they like hired us to perform, and like they had all, you know, they had like open bar, they had like hors d'oeuvres, they had buffets, they had like the mashed potato bar, which I can't stress enough. And before we started, we were talking to our director, and he was like, okay, topics tonight that the company's asked us not to talk about. They're about to lay off all of these people, so don't make any jokes about that. And we were like, what?
Oh my God.
And he was like, yeah, the reason this party is so amazing is because they're about to fire pretty much everyone you're seeing tonight.
Whoa. So you, as the performers, knew that they were going to be fired and they didn't know that? The audience?
Yes.
What the hell kind of godlike power is that to give to somebody?
You don't know, like, especially too, like, no, I have a really hard time keeping secrets sometimes. So just being there on stage and knowing that all these people are going to be fired, and like the part of me that's really self-destructive was like, what if you just told them? What would happen? What would happen?
Well, of course, that's the only thing you can think about too, right? It's like, well, don't say this, don't say this. Nothing else is coming to mind.
Yeah. It's like some sort of weird social experiment or something. Like,
yeah, it was bizarre. It was the coolest holiday party ever, but also like it was just weird because everyone was like, "You did a great job! Wow, we're gonna have to have you back next year." We were like,
let me give you a big, massive tip because I'm doing pretty well. Have a mashed potato on me.
Yeah, I was like, you might want to spoon some mashed potatoes in those takeout containers,
Yeah.
buddy, because you're gonna be
The orphanage
living
is
off
gonna
of leftovers
really
for a
psych me
while.
about this.
Yeah, it was a very bizarre position to be put into. But I look back fondly. They had different types of mashed potatoes. They had you could put butter or gravy. They even had vegetarian gravy, which was a big deal for me. They had all sorts of seasonings. People shit on corporate gigs, but let me tell you, sometimes it's almost worth it.
No, I enjoy them.
Yeah,
they're usually pretty good,
I think we had Ralph Anthony on a few weeks ago, and he was telling us about a corporate gig he did with an open bar. And as an event planner, you'll probably appreciate the importance of making sure everything lines up with when the bar opens. He was supposed to do a 45-minute set, but it got delayed. So by the time he got on stage, the entire audience was completely trashed from having access to this open bar. So he pretty much just gave up on his set and did nothing but crowd work because people heckled him the entire time. I was just like, I'm getting paid to work on my crowd work. So.
I long to be that type of comedian someday. Like I was saying, for some reason, I can't find out how to tap into my creative funniness like on demand all the time. But I hope to someday be a comedian who can just do really great crowd work and just do, because how fun would that be to just improvise your set every night,
Yeah. I don't know how people do it. I mean, maybe with like trivia hosting, maybe like you'll sharpen those skills, Kacey, and like
I'm trying.
Well, I'm sure, Rosalind, you'll sharpen your skills, just being an interviewer now.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, my biggest problem with crowd work is my anxiety. Like I have a really hard time looking at the audience when I'm performing.
Yeah. I can't. I still can't. That's kind of what gives me hope, though, is because like I feel like I'm an okay comedian now, and I'm completely scared to death on stage and can't look at people. And it gets a little bit better every year. So maybe in 10 years, I'll be able to look at someone and that'll be great, right in the eye.
Yeah, it's
you like also have to look at the right person too. I think that's learning about the crowd work a lot, because you don't want the person who's like so terrified, but also there's always that one person you do crowd work with and then they think it's their show and they are doing crowd work with you even when you're like, okay, your time's done.
Yeah.
This is me to do my set, and then they're just talking through other people's sets. So you never want to activate that person either.
Yeah.
True.
And for me, it's like my secrets to performing are I don't wear my glasses, so the audience is just a blur.
Right.
That works great for me. I don't acknowledge them, and
sir, you with the fuzzy red face, and
yes. But yeah, anyway, so I think we're coming up on the end of our time here, guys. So I'm going to say that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank both of you guys for being here, especially you, Kacey. Thanks for being such a great guest, and thanks for hanging out with us and talking to us about Distantly Social.
Congratulations on all the success. It sounds amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and where is the best place for us to check out Distantly Social if, say, Mike and I wanted to start a team?
So it has its own website because my name is so messed up and I didn't think people could remember how to spell my name. It is distantlysocialtrivia.com. So there's a spot there that like kind of tells you about the game, but also there's one that says play trivia and you can sign up and for any Thursday. So it's every Thursday at 8:00 Eastern. Anytime you want to come play.
Okay. And I do know a lot of Homeward Bound facts, so we should be all right. I at least know a lot of really dark. Go direct to video, Rosalind.
That is true. You did, and I host a movie night, so the fact that I got aced by Mike about that is pretty sad. Yeah. But anyway, you can follow Kacey at KC. Those are the letters K and the letter C. Hackett, Hackett on Instagram. Thank you, Mike, for being such a wonderful guest co-host.
Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you for being a wonderful host.
I do my best.
You are becoming a really good interviewer, I can tell.
Aw, thanks. Yeah, it helps to have cool people on the show, and it helps to know that Tom is going to take care of all of the hard stuff. But yeah, so Mike's got a show coming up. It's for the love of comedy. It's a comedy fundraiser for Kennedy Krieger. They do really great work there. They're one of the strongest places to get counseling for kids that have had traumatic experiences in Baltimore City. When I worked at House of Ruth, we referred kids to them all the time. So it's a great cause. And you can get tickets for that at bonfirealive.com. Also, a big thanks to our audience for coming and watching the program. Hello, Erica. Thank you for telling me that I'm hot in the chat. I appreciate that.
That girl's hot in the chat.
Yeah, Erica sent a message to our little stream. She said, Roz looks hot. I'm like, take it.
Not just hot, but hot in the chat. I don't know what that means, but it sounds very dirty.
I'm hot to chat.
That chick is hot to chat. That dame's hot to chat, I'll tell you.
Folksy sayings. Anyway. And if you've enjoyed the stream, please consider making a donation or following us on social media. You can also find the links to those in the episode description. Next week, we interview London-based comedian Rabia Kuhn.
Whoa.
So please